saying that the United States must defend liberty and justice because these principles are right and true for all people everywhere.
Moral truth is the same in every culture, in every time, and in every place.
It was a bold statement of American exceptionalism. Bruce Bartlett, who served in both the Reagan and first Bush administrations, explained,
"This is why George W. Bush is so clear-eyed about Al-Qaeda and the Islamic fundamentalist enemy. He understands them because he's just like them. He truly believes he's on a mission from God. The whole thing about faith is to believe things for where there's no empirical evidence."
I have a sense of calm, knowing that the Bible's admonition, "Thy will be done," is life's guide.
In early October 2002, Congress empowered Bush to go to war against Iraq on his own authority whenever he deemed it appropriate, using whatever means, including nuclear weapons, he felt necessary. The resolution drew a direct connection between Iraq and Al-Qaeda. Among those authorizing this were Senators John Kerry and Hillary Clinton. This would cost both of them dearly in their runs for president. Not all were fooled.
Escalating this war and expanding this war does nothing in terms of our national security. It puts us more at risk. Iraq was not a haven for terrorists as it is now. Again, Iraq, Saddam Hussein, and Al-Qaeda, there was no connection, and we have to dispel that notion so the American people know the truth.
Millions of protesters hit the streets around the world. 3 million in Rome, 1 million in London, hundreds of thousands in New York. Time magazine surveyed several 100,000 Europeans. 84% thought the United States the greatest threat to peace. 8% thought Iraq was. Bush sent Secretary of State Colin Powell, the most respected member of his administration, before the United Nations to make a case for war. He told Powell,
"Maybe they'll believe you. Saddam Hussein is determined to get his hands on a nuclear bomb."
Powell spoke for 75 minutes. It was a thoroughly shameful performance, promoting false intelligence that Powell later called a low point in his career. But the speech, although it fell flat overseas, had the desired impact on U.S. public opinion. Support for the war jumped from 50% to 63%. The Washington Post pronounced the evidence on WMD irrefutable. The U.S., without a Security Council resolution, was moving inexorably towards war. The truth was even darker. For Bush, Iraq was only the appetizer. After devouring Iraq, the neocons had their eyes set on the main course. Pentagon officials foresaw a 5-year campaign with a total of 7 targeted countries, beginning with Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and the biggest prize of all, Iran. It would be a war to remake the world, the neoconservative way. Talk of empire abounded. The New York Times Sunday magazine cover for January 5, 2003 read, "American Empire. Get used to it." Bush clearly was a man with a boldness of vision. He'd always exhibited an outlaw side as a younger man. Now he would outdo his towering father by going beyond the laws of nations. The 8-year war became the debacle critics predicted. Iraqi society was rent asunder. Like Vietnam, it warped America, polarizing it even further as costs and casualties mounted on all sides. Yet remarkably, Bush won the 2004 election with a naked appeal to even more fervent patriotism. By 2008, when Bush left office with the most dismal poll rating since Harry Truman, he had not only thoroughly mismanaged 2 wars, as well as the federal relief efforts for New Orleans in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, but most importantly, in the eyes of the public, he mismanaged the economy of the country, which nearly collapsed in 2008 and ensured the presidency to the Democrats. His successor, Barack Hussein Obama, child of a black Kenyan father and a white Kansas mother, who was raised in Indonesia and Hawaii, became at 47 President of the United States, evoking great hopes for change. His words and demeanor attested to the other side of America, constitutional, humanist, global, environmental. Obama had spoken out strongly against the Iraq War.
What I do oppose is a dumb war.
Financed by the internet's multitude of small contributors, stunned the heavily favored and financed Democratic Party choice, Hillary Clinton, in the primaries. He now confronted an ex-military man, conservative John McCain, in the national election. The wind was at Obama's back. Perhaps not since Roosevelt in the early 1930s was there such populist anger at Wall Street and the unnecessary wars of empire. But then an unexpected thing happened. Obama betrayed his earlier promise and became the first candidate to run in a general election to reject public financing in favor of private financing without limits. McCain, who took the public option, was badly outspent 2-1. In this period, Obama turned quietly to Wall Street funders with deep pockets like J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup, as well as General Electric and other defense contractors, computer giants, and the pharmaceuticals industry, Big Pharma, which reversed years of supporting Republicans, giving Obama 3 times as much as McCain. Few of Obama's supporters complained at the time. His victory in the national election was applauded across the world. A new America was here. Though conservatives would absurdly decry Obama as a socialist, by far the biggest winner in the election turned out to be Wall Street. Obama brought back the same economic team that under Clinton had done so much to deregulate the economy. The New York Times referred to them as a constellation of Reubenites, acolytes of the most powerful Treasury Secretary in decades, Robert Rubin. After nearly wrecking the world economy with spectacular innovations in leveraging and speculation, several giant banks, insurance companies, and mortgage lenders, prophesying the collapse of the world's economy if they went under, they were in other words too big to fail, eagerly accepted a $700 billion bailout on remarkably easy terms. In addition, the Federal Reserve Board cut the interest rate for banks to 0%. It became almost unpatriotic at the time to question the rightness of these financial rescues. But there were those who wondered, could not some of these sicker financial entities be let go and broken up? Could not these giants be confronted with the real market value of their toxic assets? The public wanted revenge. It was a classic Depression backroom moment, as illustrated by Frank Capra.
You sit there bagging your big cigars and think of deliberately killing an idea that's made millions of people a little bit happier. An idea that's brought thousands of them here from all over the country, by bus and by freight and jalopies and on foot, so they could pass on to each other their own simple little experiences. Why, look, I'm just a mug and I know it, but I'm beginning to understand a lot of things. Why, your type's as old as history. If you can't lay your dirty fingers on a decent idea and twist it and squeeze it and stuff it into your own pocket, you slap it down. Like dogs, if you can't eat something, you bury it.
Former Federal Reserve Chairman Paul Volcker urged Obama to act.
Right now, when you have your chance and the breasts are bared, you need to put a spear through the heart of all these guys on Wall Street that for years have been mostly debt merchants.
But it didn't happen. The bailout was forced through a panicked Congress. The media applauded. The Treasury made no immediate demands that bankers make that money available in new loans to businesses or the public, or for that matter, cut their personal compensations. It made no demands that shareholders or bondholders absorb any losses. Taxpayers would fund the bailout alone. The biggest losers over time would be workers, pensioners, older people with savings, homeowners, small businessmen, students with loans, and those especially African Americans who lost their jobs to a surging structural unemployment problem. Many simply lost their tenuous grip on the proverbial American dream of joining the middle class. The myth of upward mobility was shattered. The bankers, or banksters as they were nicknamed during the Great Depression of the 1930s, had talked of voluntary restraint, but received record compensation packages for the next 2 years. Whereas CEOs in Britain and Canada earned 20 times as much as the average worker in 2010, and in Japan 11 times. In the U.S., CEOs made 343 times much as the average worker. The number of billionaires went from 13 in 85 to 450 in 2008, while the minimum wage stagnated at $5.15 an hour from 97 to 2007. The poverty rate was higher than at any time since the 1960s. The net worth of the average American family actually dropped almost 40%, from $126,000 in 2007 to $77,000 in 2010. By 2011, the top 1% had more wealth than the bottom 90%. Populist anger boiled over into the Occupy Wall Street movement, a kind of protest not seen since the 1930s. The right-wing Tea Party expressed a different kind of anger, fueled by advocacy groups like Americans for Prosperity, largely funded by the conservative billionaire Koch brothers. The confused American public, not knowing who to blame for persisting economic hardship, handed the Republicans a sweeping victory in 2010's midterm elections. But only more gridlock and confusion pervaded Washington. Obama, who'd swept to office amid such euphoria, now walked a fine line, avoiding fatal mistakes, but failing to deliver on hope or change. During the 2008 campaign, the constitutional professor had promised transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency. Yet, in office, he refused to relinquish the expanded powers usurped by the Bush administration. As a passive population continued to consent to being stripped in front of airport screeners, permit eavesdropping on their communications, and pay for vast new security programs. It did not make political sense for Obama to ease this heightened state of alert in the risk that a single terrorist incident would certainly result in renewed media hysteria and a Republican "I told you so" firestorm that could cost him his presidency.
Ever in the middle of all this coming at you think maybe one term is enough?
The one thing I'm clear about is that I'd rather be a really good one-term president than a mediocre two-term president.
Instead of fighting for transparency, however, Obama became a far more effective manager of the national security state. Like Bush, he repeatedly invoked the state secrets privilege in lawsuits involving torture, extraordinary rendition, and illegal NSA eavesdropping. He blocked habeas corpus rights for enemy combatants, preserved military commissions, and authorized without due process the killing of a U.S. citizen in Yemen accused of having ties to Al-Qaeda. Obama stunned civil libertarians when he took Bush-era investigations to the next level and began prosecuting government whistleblowers and reporters using the World War I